The biggest problem with purpose is that it has morphed into something difficult, elusive, and almost unattainable for most people. But it is framing it that way is what precisely keeps most people stuck. So, what makes purpose so heavy, so elusive, so difficult? Well, when we set out to discover what our purpose is, we're looking for ways to get this purpose clarity. Most books and teachers and exercises will typically point you into three general camps. The first camp is the internal one, which I call the internal odyssey, which involves a deep dive within in search of your passions, childhood dreams, talents, or you're trying to listen for this quiet calling within you. The second camp is external. So this is the one where they send you on a wild and far-reaching journey into the world. So in this Easter egg hunt, purpose is to be found by throwing yourself into all kinds of different jobs and places and activities until you finally land on your purpose. And the third camp is austerity, which means that you are basically sent to a metaphorical mountaintop where you must wait in solitude for days, weeks, or even months. And you don't need to chase your purpose. Your disciplined elimination of all the loud day-to-day distractions eventually reveals your purpose to you. So this is like a modern day vision quest. And no matter which of these three methods you choose or go after, purpose clarity is assumed to be this challenging process. And is also not an obvious process, not quick and easy. It's expected to be arduous and difficult. And there's also no concrete parameters on how long it's going to take, whether or not this particular method is even going to work or not. And three, there's no real way of knowing if you've truly arrived or not. And on top of this difficult search process, purpose today has been put on this sacred pedestal. So if you buy into it, I need to discover my purpose is, it becomes this big checkbox that if it's left unchecked, it basically means that your career, and by extension your life, is unfulfilled, superficial, and it's incomplete. So in other words, failure to find your purpose means that on some level you have failed at your own life, which is very heavy stuff. And you might think that this purpose pressure is only limited to a small number of people, but it's not. Every single teacher, writer, content creator in the self-development sphere will tell you that by far the most common question they always receive is, how do I discover my purpose? And this isn't just online. A friend of mine came back from a 10-day Vipassana retreat. And this group was full of all different types of people. There was very high income business owners, there was firefighter, there was, some professionals. And they were asked what they most hoped to gain from the retreat. And the most common, almost unanimous answer was they wanted purpose clarity. And so purpose is in very high demand, but simultaneously it's also like Sasquatch, where no one actually finds it. And the point I'm trying to make is that it's not surprising. Of course no one's finding their purpose. If you view it as being something difficult and almost impenetrable and elusive, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And then you stack on top of that all of this pressure and this worry of not finding it, it's no wonder that very few do. So by framing it this way, you set yourself up for failure right from the onset. However, this of course is completely unnecessary. Purpose is not a complicated thing. It desperately needs to be stripped of its mystique and challenge. And it also, I think, needs to be depressurized. It needs to stop being such a heavy all or nothing destination to arrive at. So how to do this is the million-dollar question. And of course, it's easy. You just need to reframe the idea of purpose by asking a simple question: what do I want? And this is like the scene from The Notebook where Ryan Gosling's character is asking the girl, what do you want? And so purpose is just authentic desire. And so when we just connect with our desire, you automatically are going to get linked up with your purpose. But the problem, of course, is that desire itself is a bit tricky. And if you really take your time and you really look for an authentic answer, most people are surprised to find that they don't actually know what they want. Naval Ravikant, he accurately puts it in one of his quotes. He says, the hardest thing is not doing what you want, it's knowing what you want. And this is quite an unexpected realization for people. It's almost like in our society, we're expected that what we want is right there, right before us, sitting on the table, obvious for me to see, just as easy as knowing what my name is, my address, where I'm from, and what I want. But most people, of course, will struggle to find a really honest answer. And the reason why is because you have to sift through all these different false wants and all these different false desires. You have, of course, the desires that you pick up from your family, from your culture, that's whispering in your ears about what you should want as a modern human on this planet. We also have these wants which are very primal, like these desires that are based around safety and security, or for having wealth or access to a high quality mate. A lot of these modern goals that we have, especially trying to become rich and trying to find the perfect partner, they're just modern versions of these primal drives and urges that all humans have. So basically, these desires are as common as mud. They come from the factory, and we all have this wiring. So it's not a unique thing that's connected to your purpose in most cases. It's just that you have this instinct caveman desires that are sometimes convoluted with other types of desires. And of course, there's another desire, which is not desire itself, but gets confused with this whole mix, which is when you are trying to avoid a bad situation from happening. So a classic example of this could be if we look at, say, the housing market today. It's going quite crazy in many countries. Houses are going up and up and up in value and in pricing, and rent also is going up. So there might be somebody that says, I really want to have a house. I want to buy a home. And it could be that they really have a desire to buy a home. They really want that. But in many cases, they're actually just trying to avoid the unfortunate reality of where I'm going to be priced out of the housing market forever. I'm going to be vulnerable to these rental prices going up and up. So it's not that they really want the house, they just want to avoid the bad situation. And this happens in a million different examples, but I wouldn't say that desire is connected to your purpose. It's more of a playing not to lose versus a playing to win. So then that leaves us with what I would call a soul-based desire, which is the person who just wants to play music because they happen to love music, or somebody who just wants to get into rock climbing and they become professional in that area because since they were a kid, they just want to climb. The interesting thing about desire, as it's connected to your purpose, is that, again, commonly in our society, we think that we choose what we want. So we're the ones choosing, we go out and get it. But the reality is when you look at these soul-based desires, it actually chooses you. You have no real say in the matter. It's either there, it's there either way. You cannot fake it. You can't make it disappear. You can't force it. It's either you recognize it and you do it, or you don't, and you do something else. And it's also interesting that if people have not yet connected to their, again, soul-based desire, they're gonna automatically default to primal desires. So for a lot of men, they'll focus on making a ton of money or becoming famous or chasing women. So the soul desire, if we look at it, it's very distinct, as you probably know, from the thrill of other types of desires or the fear of avoiding other ones. It's a lot more quiet. It comes in the form of, for example, curiosity, where something just intrigues you, it fascinates you, or engagement. It just has that feeling of, it engages me, it gives me that deep fulfillment or that connection when I'm doing it. And so the whole point I want to make with all this is that obviously is not that easy for some people to find out what their desire is, but it's a whole lot easier just to find out, get really honest, be really honest with yourself and do a deep dive and see what is it that I want, versus trying to go after this weird, elusive idea of purpose that is floating around in our society these days. The other thing that makes it easier is that there are infinite expressions of your purpose. And so this is a big hang-up that I personally went through myself, which was after you find something that calls your name, you struggle to say, within this whole thing though, what is my real purpose? So for example, if I want to be a content creator, should I make YouTube videos? Should I write a book? Should I make a podcast? Or if I'm really drawn towards the world of branding and sales and marketing, you might think, should I take a sales job or should I get into social media? And so the answer, of course, is that there is no right or wrong answer. It's just as long as you're stepping into that field anyways, getting your hands dirty and, making a ruckus in that area. And anyways, you're going to end up in your right place. You're going to end up in the spot that best fits you. And so all of that path, you're on your purpose. So that's just basically the main gist I want to pass on to you in this video, is to let purpose be easy, let it be obvious. Don't overcomplicate it or imagine that it's this amazing, weird, complicated, difficult state to reach. Instead, just be simple with it and just start to do what you desire, what you want, but also don't entangle that with all of the different monkey brain stuff and all the caveman stuff. And that's it. So I hope you got some value out of this video, and we'll see you in the next one.